Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, welcome to another video from your favorite breakup coach, in which I'm going to explain 3 specific situations where you should avoid using the no contact rule. Or at the very least, when you should employ a modified no contact tactic. Now, obviously you guys already know me. I am Brad Browning. I am a breakup and divorce specialist, and I am located in beautiful and expensive Vancouver, Canada. So we're going to talk about no contact right now, of course, which is a technique that I've covered extensively in a lot of my past videos. And it's also a fundamental part of my 3R system, and it's covered extensively in my X Factor program as well. So for that reason, I'm not going to talk about what this tactic involves here in this video. If you have read my program or watched some of my other videos here on YouTube, you probably know all about it already anyways. Now, before I begin, please remember, folks, that regardless of what I'm going to cover in this video, ignoring your ex and using no contact generally is one of the most effective things that you can do in order to win your ex back. And all you skeptics out there, you don't have to take my word for it. Just read some comments here on YouTube or some of my past clients' testimonials, and you'll see many of them confirming that no contact really did work for them. So unless you're in a very specific situation, like the 3 I'm about to talk about it here in this video, then you should probably be employing the no contact rule immediately, and ideally for the full 30 days or even longer. Now, if you're really unsure, whether no contact is the right thing to be using in your situation or the right strategy for you because of, some kind of unique circumstances you're facing, please visit breakupbrad.com/coaching, sign up for my one-on-one coaching program, and then you can tell me all the details so we can talk about it in more depth, all right? Now, but generally, like I said, in most cases, no contact is going to be effective, except, of course, in these 3 scenarios we're going to talk about right now. All right, situation number 1 is when your ex is getting pissed off with your continued lack of response. So let's imagine that you've been, you're smart enough to begin employing my no contact rule already, and you've successfully cut off all communication with your ex. You've been sticking to it for at least a few days or more, but at this point, maybe your ex won't leave you alone. So in other words, he or she's just spamming the crap out of you with multiple calls and texts. And it's pretty obvious that your ex is becoming, frustrated with your lack of response. So in that kind of situation, you should actually probably be feeling a bit optimistic in some ways, because it does show that your ex still cares. And up to this point, using no contact in this type of scenario is actually more important than ever. You really need your ex to know that you're not going to be available to provide emotional support or to keep them entertained while they get over the post-breakup heartache and loneliness. So, using no contact, it says to your ex, get back together with me in a real relationship, or I am gone from your life for good. And that kind of scary realization can often be enough on its own to make your ex change their mind and decide to take you back. Now, this only applies, though, up to a certain point. As much as you do need to ignore your ex and stick to the no contact rule, there may come a point where you need to break the silence in order to avoid causing any major conflict. So don't just suddenly break no contact just because your ex sends you a text saying, you're so mean for ignoring me. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about situations where you've truly cut off all communication with him or her for at least a week or 2. And during that time, they've tried to reach out to you, multiple times, and they're clearly getting more and more frustrated or downright angry that you won't respond. Now, in those kinds of extreme cases, it's usually a good idea to break the silence just in order to calm things down and make sure that your ex, doesn't think you're holding a grudge or that you never want to speak to them again. So, if you find yourself in this kind of rare circumstance, wait an hour or 2 after a call or text from your ex, and then respond with a quick text or call to say, I'm sorry, I'm not really trying to be rude or anything. I've just been really busy lately, and I'm focused on moving on. Now, guys, it is important that you do not get drawn into, any kind of further discussions with your ex. Don't feel the need to elaborate or share any kind of emotion with your ex. Just make it clear that you're not intentionally being an asshole by ignoring them. You're just doing what you need to in order to move on and to get over the breakup and just move on with life. Now, of course, that is perfectly reasonable. So don't let your ex draw you into a fight or guilt you by becoming, emotional. Just say what needs to be said, get the point across, and that's it. And then you can just go back to the no contact and see it through for the full 30 days. Unless, of course, your ex breaks down and begs you to come back before then, which actually happens a lot more than you might think. All right, situation number 2 is when you have kids together with your ex or some kind of other serious shared responsibilities. Now, this is perhaps the most common of the three scenarios that I'm covering in this video, and it's also the most difficult to handle. But in short, you can't simply disappear completely if you have serious shared responsibilities with your ex, like parenting or paying bills, stuff like that. Most stuff can be ignored. If your ex is asking, how's your mom, or where are you going this weekend? Anything that isn't really pressing or genuinely important, that type of stuff you can just safely ignore during no contact. But if your ex is asking you to, pick up your daughter from school next week, or if you still live together and your ex is asking you to pay your half of the utility bills that are due tomorrow, those are the kinds of situations, the rare situations, where you can't just ignore your ex, at least not for 30 days. So in that type of situation, you'll need to handle things as best as possible by doing whatever it is you need to do. Agree to which days you'll drive the kids to school, sort out who's going to go to the bank to pay the overdue bills, etc. Just be polite, be friendly, be upbeat, and stick to the essentials. Now, I do want to stress the importance of being upbeat and positive in these kind of interactions with your ex during no contact. If you must break your silence, then this is one of those times where you can and should do so. But you also want to use it to your advantage by being, more friendly and more happy seeming than your ex is going to be expecting from somebody who's just gone through a bad breakup. So in situations like this, I call this strategy modified no contact. Basically it's just no contact adapted to suit the situation you're in as best as possible. Now, most of you guys watching, you're not going to have to worry too much about this, but the no contact tactic, it can definitely still be effective, even if it's more of a modified no contact strategy. At least, it can be effective as long as you actually do what I've just talked about in this video. And if you do, it can and often still will work. It's a great strategy. And guys, if you think you'll need to use this kind of modified no contact strategy, but you're worried about how to safely do it, how to safely break the silence, and how to use these kinds of necessary discussions with your ex to your advantage, I would be happy to work with you and give you a second opinion on your situation. All you need to do is go to breakupbrad.com/coaching. Make sure I've got a coaching spot available right now. And if I do, then you can just register right there through the website. And from that point on, we will correspond regularly and make sure that you end up getting your ex back and living happily ever after. Again, sign up for my coaching at breakupbrad.com/coaching. All right, and finally, situation number 3 is when it's been a really, really long time since the breakup. Yeah, now I know that a lot of you guys watching are going to want me to be more specific on this. Maybe you're thinking, well, what defines a really long time, Brad? How long is long enough that I don't actually need to use no contact? Good question. So glad you asked. Only I really don't have an easy answer other than it depends. Certainly, if you broke up a year ago or even more than that, and you haven't been talking and seeing your ex regularly, as in weekly or even more often since that time, then you can probably safely skip the no contact period completely. On the other hand, if it's been 6 months, maybe even 8 months since the breakup, something like that, or if you've been talking to your ex regularly, almost daily since the breakup, maybe seeing them fairly often, in that kind of situation, then you may still need to cut off communication for at least, a partial no contact phase. And you know what? If you're in doubt about whether you should use this, do use no contact because it is less likely to backfire and to make matters worse than if you don't use the no contact strategy when you probably should have. But like I said, when it's been a really long time since you last saw your ex, or if you broke up, long ago, and you don't talk very often anymore, then that can sometimes be a fairly good reason not to use the no contact tactic. Now, fundamentally, ignoring your ex, it does several things. It taps into basic human psychology. And as I already mentioned, one of those things that it accomplishes is sending your ex a really clear message that the breakup means losing you from their life for good. Now, that sense of fear that your ex is going to feel if you use this technique properly is not going to be nearly as effective as if they've already started to move on and become more used to daily life without you. So that is why in many situations like this, where it's been many months since the breakup, it's not always necessary to use no contact, or at least, not for the full 30 days. All right, and a final piece of advice here for this video, and really it's just a bit of a reminder that no contact isn't the only strategy to use when you are trying to start over with your ex. I mean, yes, it is probably one of the most common tactics that you'll see suggested online. And it really does work well in the vast majority of cases. But really, my 3R system, recovery, rekindling, and reattraction, has 3 R's in it. In other words, it has 3 phases. And no contact is only part of one of those 3 R's, one of those 3 phases. And it can sometimes be enough on its own to make your ex come crawling back to you, especially if you've got the self-discipline to actually employ the no contact rule properly. But the rest of the techniques and the advice in my X Factor guide involve saying certain things to your ex or doing certain things that have been proven to change their mind about the breakup and rebuild, natural, organic attraction to the point where they'll forget about any excuses and they'll decide on their own to take you back. Now, guys, I am going to cover a lot of those strategies in future videos, but I've also gone into a lot more depth about some of the most important ones in the full free video on my website, breakupbrad.com. So, go over, watch that video, or register for my X Factor program, which you can also do at breakupbrad.com, in order to give yourself the best possible chance of reversing your breakup and starting over with your ex. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been such a wonderful audience. That is about it for today, but please remember to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube to show your support and to keep me motivated to make more videos just like this one in the future. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.